We might still need to do some Eurobond, but we want to concentrate on concessionary loans, which are longer tenured and low cost, to also help to rebalance our debt service obligation. And in all of this, we will, of course, be needing approvals of the National Assembly and the usual support that you give to us. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, distinguished and honorable members. Thank you.
That was the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, with her presentation at the public hearing on the 2019 national budget. As I explained earlier, the public hearing is meant to collate opinion from stakeholders and to expose the national budget, not just to legislative scrutiny, but also public scrutiny, so that at the end of the day, we would have a close to perfect budget document.
Now we'll take up some comments or questions from various civil society organizations. We have online and interest to speak, but there's no restriction for all the 3 minutes. We are very limited time. So we'll tell the panelists and the conference. They are not. 3 minutes.
Your Excellency, the Honorable Speaker, I stand by the existing protocol. Okay. Okay. Let's take this. We are honored by your invitation to be part of the process of this public hearing. Our commendation go to this esteemed National Assembly. We'll begin our intervention by acknowledging the executive intervention programs, especially the school feeding programs and trade money. We believe this intervention have been implemented without party sentiment. We appreciate this intervention because if properly implemented, they are capable of lifting the poor out of entire poverty level. In light of this, we need intervention in other sectors. On the budget, we would appeal to the executive to open up the process of budget articulation and preparation for community participation and better end results. We still continue to overdepend on oil as revenue earner. The risk is high, oil prices are volatile and often lead to faulty assumption as the case in the budget. Another weakness is the number of increase in the taxes. The assumption that government can realize high tax revenue from the weak and vulnerable sector of the economy and members of the society may not happen. At best, government may realize only to 2%. Though we have presented our paper documents there, so it's with the Secretary, sir. So. Yes, it's presented there. Okay. In conclusion, it is important that it is in the process of consideration of the proposed budget, the National Assembly working with the executive arms finalize the cost implication of implementing the 30,000 minimum wage in respect of the federal public sector. Clearly, appropriation of the amount required for full implementation need to be made in the budget. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, NLC. We'll move to invite the next presentation from PLAC. Mr. Clement. I'm asked to remind you, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished senators, honorable members. Yes, I have taken note, Chairman. To say congratulations to the National Assembly for the third consecutive public hearing on the national budget. It is indeed significant that the engagement with civil society, with Nigerians on the budget is becoming institutionalized within the National Assembly. We also note that the Ministry of Budget and National Planning has also been on the same trajectory in terms of engaging civil society organizations. Mr. Speaker, you did make a comment in your speech referring to the National Assembly Budget and Research Office, NABRO, which has been an institution that has been awaiting formal establishment in the National Assembly in the last almost 10 years. You, of course, made the point that the bill was not assented to by the President. NABRO is perhaps the single most important institution regarding budget that the National Assembly can create. And I must say that it is still very disappointing that the National Assembly has not exercised its powers to override a presidential veto on NABRO. It is a very important institution in every democracy, and NABRO is an important one. Secondly, to say that the budget process is really very critical, and I'm happy that the Minister of Budget had made the point about expeditious and quickly passage of this bill. At all times, a budget is as successful as the timeliness of its submission and passage, and our hope is that this is the case. But more importantly, citizens' role in oversight, citizens' role in monitoring the budget is very critical. The National Assembly has a critical role to play in carrying out oversight, and the importance of collaboration with civil society to ensure that budget objectives are met is really very important. While we laud the importance of annual passage of budgets, we also think it's really even more important that those budgets are operated, those budgets are delivered, and those budgets are implemented according to the letters of the law that it represents. And the failure to do so means that the crisis of national development continues. Poverty is not a virtue. Poverty is a disadvantage to a lot of people, and when budgets are not implemented, poverty continues to entrench in any society. And in every economy, a government succeeds by counting how many more billionaires it has created in a budget cycle. Where a government does not understand the importance of creating more wealthy people, then there is a challenge of development, because it is only by creating a class of wealthy people that you can drag even more people out of poverty. And so, as a direction of government, poverty must be something that this government needs to tackle by ensuring that policies are put in place to drag more people out of poverty, create more wealth, and enable those who have resources to invest it without governmental constraints. We wish this public hearing that it goes successfully, but more importantly, we wish that this government will implement national budgets in order to drag this country out of the poverty levels that it has sunken into, because we need to get out of it in order that more employment is created and that more citizens are able to find reasons to trust in the ability of government to serve and protect their welfare. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and Chairman.
Next, Senator Social.
You may please stand on existing protocol.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and the distinguished senators, honorable members, and then ladies and gentlemen. May I stand on the existing protocol on behalf of the Center for Social Justice to say that the 2019 budget, we made submissions through our publications, the review of the 2019 Federal Appropriation Bill and estimates, and then the frivolous and inappropriate, unclear and wasteful estimates in the 2019 budget, which we have also submitted. And we believe that the submissions and recommendations made in the two publications will aid the National Assembly in the passage of the bill. Thank you very much.
Next is budget. The next one is action aid. Action aid.
Okay, Celestine Okudele, representing Action Aid Nigeria. I stand on the existing protocol. Action Aid is an organization that promotes participatory governance. We've extracted the 2019 budget and raised our concerns, which we've already submitted. I just want to talk on the process of formulating the budget. We are calling on the need to institutionalize gender-responsive budgeting. Action Aid calls on both the legislative and the executive arms of the government to enforce gender-responsive budgeting model and make it permanent through sponsoring and passing a bill, an act of parliament, as is obtainable in other countries like Uganda. With such measures, the MDAs will be obliged to take into cognizance the specific needs of the women, the most vulnerable groups in the country. It will also support effective gender public service delivery, which is expected to be funded publicly, delivered universally, thus reducing social exclusion. Sequel to the passage of the Discrimination Against Disability Prohibition Act 2018, we call on the National Assembly to mandate the MDAs to make provisional arrangements to accommodate the 5% employment opportunity for persons living with disability as recommended. We also call to institutionalize citizen participation in the budget process. There is the need to make the budget processes more participatory and inclusive. It means the involvement of all stakeholders in the different stages of the budget process, especially the women groups, people with disability, and the youths. We should go beyond the present situation of civil society participating at the annual budget public hearing at the National Assembly. Rather, the civil society technicality is required at all stages of the budget process. The advantage of such wider citizen participation are enormous. Improvement in service delivery, efficiency and effectiveness of governance, enhanced equity and inclusiveness, improved citizen access to public decision making, which will leverage accountability at all levels. On a wider spectrum, the National Assembly should ensure that the Budget Office of the Federation, as a matter of urgency, map out funds to drive basic economic literacy across the country, with the aim to enlighten the citizens on the budget, simplifying budget documents, and the use of the citizens' portal. Thus enhancing effective participation. In addition, the National Assembly should ensure that all MDAs include the items for citizens' consultation through town hall meetings before the court for circular, in order to be able to prioritize the actual needs of different groups of the people within the society. This has become necessary because annually we have a budget does not really address the needs of the people. The Honorable Speaker mentioned that when he was delivering his opening remarks. So there is the need for the budget to represent the actual needs, and this could only be done when people are consulted. And consulting people means, our representatives actually prioritizing our needs, so that this should be accommodated in the budget. Thank you very much.
Next is Abuja Foundation.
Standing on the already established protocols, my name is Omojo Ogedo. I'm here to raise issues on the recurrent expenditures. The Honorable Minister rightly said that it will depend mostly on internal and external borrowings to fund the 2019 budget. As we are aware, public interest cannot be said to be well served when government officials, such as former governors and their deputies, get their emoluments in their current positions with life pensions and emolument drawn from their state mega resources. Double emolument and large severance benefits for former governors and deputies now serving public offices constitute nothing other than a betrayal of public trust. Our concern, picking it from the Code of Conduct of Public Offices, we know that there's no way economy can grow if the desired progress of there's no way any economy can make the desired progress in a situation where the political leadership is arguably more interested in salaries and overhead than in capital expenditures. Monies that naturally should be channeled into infrastructural development are now used to serve the personal interests of political leaders. The level of infrastructural deficit we see in the country today could have been the reverse if these monies are channeled into the real sector that drive growth and development in any country, including the educational sector, health, infrastructure, and agriculture. Our call is to stop the tale of double salaries and emolument across the country. If we can stop that, we can get resources to fund the budget instead of increasing our borrowing capacity. Thank you.
Next, strategy and development. Now, strategy and development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Mr. Nenwachku. I stand on already as these established protocols. We are making a case for increase the capital expenditure for basic education. If you look at the analysis or the component of the capital component of the budget for education, about 47.3 billion was proposed, allocated for the capital component in the education, and out of that, basic education, which is one of the most critical components because of the education sector, because we are battling with embarrassing statistics of out-of-school children. We are also battling with rising poverty levels and other social vices. So our argument is that government should increase funding to basic education, which constitutes the most critical sector. Investment must be made in the social sectors, education, agriculture, social protection, and health. And if you must get this right to restart or jumpstart the economy to reflect an economy that will provide prosperity for all, we must prioritize the primary education sector. And we are saying that the 6% allocated for capital component for basic education is still small, that it has to be raised, it has to be improved to cater for our children, to cater for our younger ones who are the most vulnerable, and threatened section of our demography. So we are using this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, and members of the committee to appeal that this component be increased. If you also look further, you see that 32% is allocated for capital projects in the Ministry of Education, the headquarters. And we are arguing, why must the Ministry of Education, get the highest chunk of this 47 billion? That it has to be revised to provide more for basic education, which most of them reside in rural areas. We are also speaking from that perspective that most of these, our children, over 14 million of them or thereabouts, who are out of school, who are of school age, or lack the means to be in school, they reside in rural areas. And if you are serious, or if you show enough commitment to tackle poverty and inequality in our society, enough investment must be made in this critical sector to bridge the gap and raise so many people out of poverty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Center for Development and Development. Democracy.
Thank you, Chair. I stand on existing protocol. My name is Austin Aigbe, and I represent the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. We affirmed that amidst the country's quest to block leakages, to discourage illicit transfer of funds, the country's budget is still vulnerable to leakages. The budget proposal is filled with what we classify as waste, where we need to take out a lot of people out of poverty. Because of time, because we already submitted, I will make reference to some areas we think that the Appropriation Committee need to look at very critically. The service-wide vote has become a source of concern. We raised it last year. In 2017, it was 1.3 trillion, which is about 31% of the total. But even though benchmark globally is between 3 and 10%, but the service-wide vote continued to increase. In 2018, it was 1.8 trillion, that is 36%. And now, in 2019, it is 2.14 trillion. We need to look at the service-wide vote has become an avenue. We need to begin to critically look at that because we need to focus on a global benchmark, 3 to 10% of the total budget. And last year, too, we raised a budget line item called counterpart funding, which is under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Again, last year, 820 million was a mark for counterpart funding. And we said, what does counterpart funding in this category mean? This year, 2019, a total of 734 million has again been earmarked for the same counterpart funding. We need to begin to query some of those line items. Also, curiously, the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation, Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, has earmarked 30 billion naira for the implementation of the Freedom of Information Act, FOI. What does the MOJ do, the Ministry of Justice? That 30 million will be budgeted for by the head of service. So we are curious that this needs to be addressed and taken out, because that's not their responsibility. Because, so the government that described the proposal of 2019 as a budget of continuity to consolidate on the gains of the 2018 and advance delivery of economic recovery and growth plan. However, the framework for this plan is without because of replication in those budget line items. Transparency and accountability are crucial in advancing the delivery of the economic growth plan and to meet the objective of the budget continuity. So we think that the National Assembly must critically, in advancing all of these areas, because also we noted that there are critical sectors, education, health, that need to be invested more in. Not in, for example, in a state house villa, a lot of resources is a mark for renovation, whereas we are not tackling poverty. I thank you so much.
Last but not least, civil rights concern. All right.
And after that, the DG Budget Office of the Federation will make just a few remarks.
Okay, I thank the National Assembly for giving us the opportunity to make these remarks. Our members have spoken about increasing the budget size for education, agriculture, as well as the other key sectors of the economy. But it seems to me, too, that it's important to talk about what is actually done. In the education sector, for example, it seems to me, too, that the ministry and the government, more or less, has not taken interest in implementing the UBE. That as children are going to school without learning, what the World Bank has called schooling without learning. And at the end of the day, they graduate without skills. The education that our children are getting are not relevant to our industry, to our society, to development. And even the learning, most of the children come out not being able to make good sentences. And so there's need to increase the quality of education we're giving to our children. Then come to agriculture. If you look at the number of research institutes and organizations in the country, there are so many. They take a good chunk of our budget. If you look at the budget of agriculture for 2017, 2018, they are quite big. A good chunk of the budget has been given to them. So what is the relationship between the research organizations and the field, the farmers? Through our review of the state and federal government budgets, we have seen that there's no state that has a ratio of up to one agric extension farmer to 5,000 farmers. So one agric extension worker to 5,000 farmers. So at once you'll be getting the ratio of 1 to 7,000. So how can we really increase the food production? So for agric extension workers to, if you look at the ERGP, they say roll out extension services. And we've been trying to see this thing rolled out, and we don't see it. Apart from the World Bank project and IFAD on value chain Farama, where they do pilot projects, you don't see essential services anywhere. So how do the farmers really get information that is really coming out from the research centers? How can we grow the food? Now, about 3 weeks ago, I was watching a program. Somebody was saying that Nigeria has attained about 95% self-sufficiency in rice production. And we went to the field to really find out if it's true, and some other research reviews some other people have done. And we discovered too, and most when the Central Bank is saying that they did not give foreign exchange for rice production in 2018. And because of that reason, now we are producing enough rice for Nigeria. Now, some people have done a review, and have found that it's not really the correct thing. And so it is better to have a baseline of what we actually need in rice production. so that we work hard to meet it. So because we are not issuing foreign exchange on rice production now, on rice cultivation, or rather importation, does not mean that we're no longer importing rice. In fact, the review most people have done has shown that, have actually shown that there's rice importation from across the borders. And without this importation from across the borders, a bag of rice of 50 kg could be costing up to 30,000 naira. And so let's take the baseline and really find out what to require to supplement local production so that we shall be working in tandem with the kind of ideas we have to grow food, to have food security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. DG Budget Office of the Federation, a few clarifications.
Yes, there are 1 or 2 issues on the closing session.
Mr. Speaker, I respectfully stand on existing protocols. I just wanted to provide some clarification regarding some of the issues that have been raised. First, there has been repeated commentaries with respect to the need for greater openness and participation in the budget process. And I wanted to underscore the commitment of the present administration under the leadership of His Excellency, the President, and specifically also the Minister for Budget and National Planning, to this greater openness and participation in our budget process. You recall that in 2016, Mr. President signed and committed the country to the Open Government Partnership. And a key component of that is fiscal transparency and accountability, and there are commitments that we in the Budget Office have been in driving seat for. Specifically, pursuant to this, and I am surprised at some of the people who have talked about, we have opened up the budget office, the budget process more than before. Previously, the public presentation by the minister only happens after the budget has been passed into law. Now, in addition to an open forum where most of the people here are invited to at the time of preparing the medium-term expenditure framework, the same thing is done at the time the budget is. For instance, Mr. President presented the budget for 2019 to the National Assembly on the 19th of December, and on the 20th of December, there was a public presentation by him of the same budget to take, inputs. On the website of the Budget Office of the Federation, we have what is called a citizens portal that is open for interactive, participation, by the public. Comments and any observations about the budget process. The full details of the budget, which didn't used to be the case, are on the website of the Budget Office. And so, some of the submissions that I've seen being created today probably have been more helpful if they had been submitted to us or discussed. So, for instance, someone wondered what counterpart funding was. I mean, that's a simple question that if you asked us, we would explain that it relates to government's own share contribution to externally funded projects in agriculture, for which Minister of Finance has, details. So we just want to underscore, that it's a process. The other thread running through some of the comments is that the budget may not have catered sufficiently to the poor and vulnerable. Again, while the entire spending plan is still less than is adequate for the country, and that much, I believe, was stated by the Minister of Budget and National Planning. The truth is that our budgets, like never before at any point in this country, now actually contain provisions that are targeted at the poor and vulnerable. The major one of which is the special intervention program, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why the service-wide vote, has grown, because those provisions have been centralized in there. So I think that the last thing I'd like to speak again to is the continuing allegations about frivolous, inappropriate, and wasteful provisions. It would be nice to actually, use our openness to engage on some of these. We're very open to take suggestions, but oftentimes those who have engaged have found that some of what they consider frivolous or inappropriate are actually not so. For instance, there's always the allegation that there's repetitive provision for items. The reality is that can occur for a number of reasons. If a provision is made in 2018 and it is not funded, it will be repeated. The Minister for Budget and National Planning earlier on stated that a lot of the capital provisions in the 2018 budget have been rolled over into 2019. So when you see them in 2019 budget, you say, oh, they were in 2018, therefore, it's inappropriate. That's just, I believe that both ourselves and the National Assembly are committed to this process of greater openness and making the budget actually serve, the needs of the people. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, distinguished senators, honorable members, Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Honorable Minister of Finance, Busy Budget, other distinguished members, including the civil society organizations, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to come to the end of this public hearing for the 2019 budget. I want to use this opportunity to especially thank His Excellency the Speaker for saying throughout this session, it is my time to we also want to thank other ministers, because I know there's tension, there's busy this morning. Today is Wednesday, and we all know that it's a fact day. The agenda fact for fact became a straight in the media class. We thank you all. Before I conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners in particular who have contributed financially and morally in making this event possible. We thank you very much, and we look forward to future partnership activities. I want to also thank all of us, all those of us, different times, whether presentations or to read submission, because there are some presentations that are not very read. We are taking note of them. They will all be part of the inputs which will be used in having a final decision on this budget as the previous years. We thank you. And we look forward to the 9th Assembly's public hearing on budget with a lot of improvements for us or whatever benefit from this one. I want to thank you, and I want all of us thank you very much. God bless. On this call, we have that close this public hearing.
May we please rise for the national anthem? We'll sing the national anthem after 2 counts. 1, 2. Arise.
Thank you for coming.
And that ends the public hearing jointly organized by the Senate and House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation on the 2019 budget. The initiative is that of the 8th Assembly, and this is the third in the series. The forum was basically an executive, legislative, and citizens engagement forum meant to ensure openness and promote inclusiveness and active stakeholder participation in the appropriation of amounts for government spending. On behalf of all those that made this live transmission a success, I am Lami Ali, thanking you for sticking with us and asking you to stay tuned as we resume regular programming.